We are back with the Kaye Pasa Trio. Welcome back, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a great set of music y'all did.
Oh, thank you.
And I heard so many different influences in your music. I'm just real curious. What influenced y'all musically? I'll start with John.
Wow. Well, I guess I like lyrical songs really well. Paul Simon was an early influence. In the 70s, Guy Clark, and from there forward on both of those. And then I have a friend named David Harbaugh who I co-write with sometimes, and we actually co-wrote a good part of my album Honky Tonk Hymnal. And I feel like most of the songs I write for him to hear, and then he's like usually the first person who hears one of my songs, and then kind of thumbs up or thumbs down, or we make suggestions,
Right.
and go back and forth. But yeah, I've always liked lyrics that told a story or suggested a story.
Right. Kaye.
I was a folkie when I started out, and I think one of the advantages of us being not a band in our 20s
Right.
is that we've all listened to and studied music for a lot of years, and picked up this and picked up that.
Right.
I didn't start writing until I was in my 50s.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
But I
That's
had a
good
lot to
hear.
say by that time.
I bet. Kind of a little bit of life under your belt there that you
Yes,
could write
I did.
about.
Yeah.
Paul, what about you?
Well, I started listening to music when I was probably about 4 or 5 because there was music always ringing around in my house.
Right.
My dad played, my mom sang, and I have 3 brothers that all sing and played. So it was music was around me all the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the Beatles came along, and that's what really said to me, "Hey, you got to learn how to play guitar." So I did.
Oh, come on now. The guitar was to get the girls, wasn't it?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Like the Beatles.
Be
yes.
honest is real important in the music.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Paul does have a very musical family, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like-
Yeah.
Back then, I looked a little more like Adonis than I do now.
Oh, you look like Adonis. Come on. That's what I was thinking.
No, so it was a lot of fun growing up in that family and playing, and so I wound up playing a lot of different bands. But the Beatles were a big influence, and Crosby, Nash, and the Eagles.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard a little bit of Grace Slick and Jefferson Starship and all that in kind of some of the stuff you did. It had that flavor.
It was certainly our era,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a
Well,
little of
a
that.
lot of people have told me I sound like Marty Ballin. Yeah, his voice.
Do you feel like your music together now? Do you feel like it's stronger?
I
In other words,
think
each
some
one
of
of
it
you
is
is a
that
writer.
what we all have a lot of songs that we don't do as a band, but when we find that song that
Everybody likes.
works for the band, it's not even because I like a lot of, we like a lot of each other's songs that we don't do, but it's the ones that are going to come together for us in a certain way, and we can usually tell, in 10 or 15 minutes of starting to go through it whether or not it's going to be one of those songs.
What do you look for in the song itself as you look at each other's tunes? I know, having been in a band of songwriters before, Helen and I we were kind of a similar thing to y'all, except there were 5 of us, and it was like we liked every song.
Yeah.
So it's just what to do, But how do you decide?
Well, for me, it's a lot of the harmony, whether or not we can get 2 good harmonies out of it. Paul?
I'm with you on that. If it's something that you can harmonize to me, it's more fun to do the song.
It's I'm a big harmony lover person myself. I just think that when you have it and you're in that zone, the fullness and the life that comes, it's amazing.
I don't think there's anything better than sharing that feeling with people. Well,
Yeah.
there might be a few things
I
better.
tell most people.
Yeah.
It's right up there. Harmony, yes.
Harmony. Yeah.
I was speaking of harmony, yeah.
Yeah.
I tell most people that the band is 2.5 parts harmony, and they know where the half is. So yeah,
Take the melody,
but this
John.
Again, like I said a while ago, Paul comes from a very musical family, and I don't know how Kaye always got her harmony, but but they've sung a lot and they've sung harmony a lot. And I grew up in a tone deaf family,
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
and so no choir, no anything like that. So
When
harmony
I was,
doesn't come as naturally for me, and
Right.
so they have to hit me a lot.
yes,
Aw.
we do. Cattle prod.
Well, harmony isn't really easy. I mean, it's you either hear it and find it or you don't. And
I think
just-
growing up with it makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
yeah.
I did too, just like Paul.
What brought you guys together?
Well, that's
that
interesting.
story?
I'll tell that one because obviously Paul has a lot of talent. Kaye has a lot of talent. I have a van, so we were kind of.
Don't
When you
sell
look at it
yourself
that
short.
way, you can see we were kind of a. No, actually, it was a little bar in Austin, and I was playing an open mic there, and I met Paul first, and we played a little bit together as a duo. And then but before we even started as a duo, we had met Kaye, who had just moved back to Texas.
From LA. I had
And
been
then
playing
we
in
would
LA.
all do these little open mics once in a while, and we'd see one. Oh, will you come up and help me with this song? Sure. Will you come up and help me? And then we would sort of mix it around a little bit, and then at some point, Kaye beat us into submission and said we'd have to be a trio.
Kind of sounds
The,
familiar.
the
doesn't
fun
it?
thing is
This
how we
will
got our
happen.
name. How we got our name was at a bar. We were just playing without really a name. We would go up there, that's Paul Teneyuque and Kaye Reznick and John Davenport, and well, that's a little long to say. And a barmaid at one of our favorite honky tonks said, "How about the Kaye Pasa Trio?" And it stuck.
Yep.
Well, barmaids are wonderful, aren't they?
She
Oh,
looked
yeah.
a little like an angel too.
Especially at that time. when it comes to- So, guys, Helen had asked you earlier about influence and things like that, but I'd like to go a little further back. I'd like each one of you to tell us where you were born and raised and where those first years were right before you did your first song.
Let's start with the oldest down there.
Oh,
Wait, that's me.
Oh.
I confess.
Who was born first? Yeah, there.
Me. Well, I was born in Utah, but raised in Southern California in the LA area. And my mother, she could play anything on the piano just as if she were reading music just by ear. If she'd ever heard it, she could play it. So, that's what I grew up around. And it was when I was about 3 or 4, I thought everybody could harmonize. When I first met kids who couldn't harmonize, I thought something was wrong, So I found these guys a few years later, and they could harmonize.
well, I was born and raised in Lubbock, Texas, and as I said before, my family was a musical family, and I started playing in bands in about 1968.
Year I graduated.
And so I played a lot of different bands around Lubbock, and first time I left home was 17 to go play, and then I was in and out of Lubbock the rest of my life. But recently I have been back there in about 25 years now. I've been in Austin and been playing around the Austin area, so one of the bands that I had the most fun with was a band called Peyote in the 70s.
I bet.
It was a good name.
Sounds fun.
Paul believes that somewhere he has good memories of that. But he
Yeah.
hasn't
Yeah, you
been
just
able to-
can't remember.
hasn't dug 'em up.
I still have the T-shirt to prove it.
I was born in Dallas, Texas, and raised in a little suburb there, and had my dad liked some folk music, which was nice. We had that huge compilation folk album of Folkways of America or something. But mainly he liked Western music, like Marty Robbins or Sons of the Pioneers, that sort of thing. So I grew up with that in one side, and then my mother liked show tunes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But neither of them could sing particularly well. My father was one of the few people who I think was asked to quiet down at a Baptist church.
Oh, no.
Mouth the words, Charlie. So yeah.
Oh, wow.
So my musical influence actually came from my cousin Betsy first, who sort of helped teach me, got me interested in guitar, introduced me to the music of Simon and Garfunkel in the '60s, and on from
Favorite
there.
song of theirs?
Of Simon and Garfunkel, The Boxer.
Mine too.
It'd have to be The Boxer. Although Feeling Groovy is a close second for me.
Yeah.
Because it's one nobody covers anymore.
What a great story song, you know. Emmylou Harris's version of that.
It's
Killer
and again
version.
that's sort of the beginning of where I liked song, and with my father's influence, you know, when it's a Western song, they all tell stories. They're all ballads.
You had very similar.
So,
to
yeah.
my mother liked the Tony Bennett's and the Frank Sinatra's,
right.
and my dad liked Bob Wills, and you know.
Well, and some of those, the big band, like or Frank Sinatra, the big singers like that, some of their songs would have that story element, but generally in a play or a movie, it's just the moment of the play that it tells, and it doesn't really unfold a story. And so, yeah, hearing
By
Simon and
itself.
Garfunkel, Glenn Campbell's, some of his early stuff that he recorded, when I first heard Gentle on My Mind, it blew me away. Here was a song that told a story and almost didn't rhyme, it seemed like,
Right.
So,
And a song that rambled, but
Yeah.
boy, it took you on a good ride. But that led to a lot of
suggest a
singers like
story.
Harry Chapin could do that to you, and I think Gordon Lightfoot could do that
Oh,
to
yes.
you too. The
He
same
was one
way.
of my big influences.
You know, and they could take you on those rides, and it's like, I don't care where he's going. He sounds so good doing this, you
Yeah.
know.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. I think it's nice that we all came out of an era where lyrics were so important. Because they still are with us. Yeah.
To me, that's why I love folk music.
Yeah, me too.
It's ultimately about the lyrics.
Yep.
Yeah, we're basically a folk rock band, so, with a lot of harmonies and lyrically sensitive.
Yeah. You definitely have your own unique sound, and you stand out, and I love that about you guys.
Thank you.
You say, Kay, that we were talking earlier, and you said that you guys have been together about 3 years as a band.
That's right.
Do you stay predominantly in Texas, or have you toured or thinking about touring?
We have not toured yet. We're open to things. We're kind of trying to just build this thing brick by brick. So we'll see if that happens.
Well, I think that people need to hear you, and they love you. So
Well, thank you.
think about it harder and do it.
We've got some good mutual friends, and Tommy and Kathy, and
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
some other folks in Austin, and
Give a quick shout out to Tommy because,
yeah.
again, I mentioned
Tommy
this
Bird
before we
we're
came
talking
on here.
about.
Tommy Bird of Bird
Yeah.
and Street engineered our CD.
yeah.
He engineered Paul's solo CD, engineered both of my solo CDs, and we just love Tommy to death. And
He's
he has
a
that
superb,
wholesome,
fun
good
guy.
storyteller,
Oh, he is.
very wholesome songs. I really wish I could do wholesome.
I think he's
No, you
he's
don't.
one of the best hook writers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He can turn a hook, which is hard for most songwriters to
Yes.
find that magical little hook.
Yeah.
I've heard a few songwriters say, they can write lyrics all day long, but finding a hook is like finding a needle in a haystack.
He's also one of the few I like hearing an intro to his song where he talks about it, because about the most dangerous thing you can do with a songwriter is say, why did you write that song?
Right.
And it'll be a 5-minute intro for a 3-minute song.
And then there's the sideways hat that he wears. Have you seen him wear his hat sideways?
He looks like a continental soldier.
Tommy has a song called "He Tells All the Girls He's a Cowboy."
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was wearing that silly hat at a concert, and I was there in the crowd watching, and I'm wearing a little straw cowboy hat that I had. And as he introduces the song, he goes, and he tells all the girls that he's got, and he points out at me in the audience, and everybody turned to me and I went, what did I do? So on the way home that night, I wrote a song that was on my first album that was, what's the name of that song, Paul?
All hat, no
All
cattle.
Hat, No Cattle, yeah. So it inspired that song at least.
So I know one of the things that y'all talked about too in one of your songs was "Don't Dallas My Austin," that song, which I thought was a lot of fun. I totally get it. Living near Dallas, I don't live in Dallas on
Deliberately.
purpose.
Yeah, right.
Yes. In fact, they're one of my favorite restaurants.
Dallas is a pretty city, though.
It is,
is
and it's
pretty
and I don't
city.
mean it's just Dallas.
It looks
so-
great in the distance.
Can you say?
But Austin is changing, and that's one of the things I wanted to
Yes.
talk to you
Oh,
about
Lord.
because
Yeah.
as well as it being wanting to keep it weird with what's coming into Austin right now, you don't have any problem
Yeah,
with that.
true.
You're getting invaded by Southern California. You're getting invaded by Illinois and Mexico and New York.
And the legislature every few years.
And
invades too. And
yeah,
boy,
they show up every couple of years.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. Yeah.
And in spite of it all, Austin just keeps on rolling along.
Yeah.
But in the time you've been there, Paul, have you been there the longest?
I've been there since '86, so I guess.
Yeah,
I've been there
consistently the long. I first went there in '75.
I was there in '69.
I mean, I was there in the
70,
'70s playing in bands and stuff, but I didn't live there.
Yeah.
How have you seen Austin change for the better, and have you seen it change for the worse?
Well,
And that's a question to all of you.
yeah, I mean, Austin is it used to be very
Come in the mic for me.
very ecocentric, where you thought about the people, you thought about the environment and everything. And in the past, I guess 10, 15 years, kind of gotten away from that with all the high rises being built. As far as musically goes, it still touts itself as the music capital of the world, but it's just now trying to get back to where it was as far as taking care of musicians, because it kind of lost sight of what they had in music-wise for the last 10 years.
And there lies one of the problems too with Austin. To me, it's very much like Nashville. It's there's so many people there vying for. Although you've got a lot of venues, you've got a lot of people wanting to play those venues,
Yeah.
and they can literally line people up to play for free.
Sure.
Yes,
So
that's
it makes
a
it
problem
difficult
everywhere, I
on the
think.
local musicians. I've
Yeah.
always found that the last place I wanted to really go try to make a living was Nashville or Austin.
Yeah.
Although I
if
have
you're
to
a
say, I've been
songwriter.
there the shortest time. I've been back to Texas for 6 years. I raised my kids in the Houston area and then went back to LA for about a dozen years. And I was playing there, and I find it much easier in Austin to get paying gigs. They don't pay much all the time, but LA, it's just pay to play, pretty much these days.
We have another mutual friend because also on this program sometime back you had Jack Pledge.
Yes, yeah.
And
In fact, there's an interesting story.
oh, really?
About
With
when he
Jack,
was
there's
here.
always an interesting story, I'm afraid. But Jack was the one who told me that the best place to be an Austin musician is away from Austin. And I found that out in my travels with my girlfriend Sue over here, that we've gone around and sometimes we go somewhere and I'll say, well, I want to hit an open mic or something and just say I've played in Minneapolis.
Right.
While we're up
Right.
there. And I go in there and I'm late for signing up and all. And I walk up and say, look, I'm from Austin and I want to, oh, that's fine. Well, I
Yeah.
didn't have a guitar. Well, here's a guitar. They were very, very happy. So I've played up in Minneapolis and St. Paul and played in Denver and Leadville and Kauai. Yeah, out in Hawaii. Yeah, we went to Hawaii and I got
And
to
the
play
one
there.
thing you don't want to do is tell them you're from Dallas. They won't have the same
Yeah,
response.
exactly. Yeah, it doesn't-
You
Yeah.
hand me a cowboy hat or something.
Well, it's funny. People have once you're outside the state, and I did live outside the state for a few years. People have a very different response when they ask where you're from. If you say you're from Austin as opposed to you're from Texas.
Well, and it's the same. It's kind of a similar response to people from Texas when they're out of the country, because they will say, "I'm from Texas," where most people from Utah, if you're in Brazil, you're going to say, "I'm from the USA." But
Right.
Texans don't do that.
Yeah,
Uh,
I guess
a lot
that's
of
true.
foreign places, I think they know New York and California and maybe Texas.
So I'm going to tell a story real quick, and that's the way that they start a fairy tale everywhere in the world is
Don't oversell
once
it,
upon
man.
a time, right?
In Texas.
In Texas, it's you ain't gonna believe this shit.
See what I have to live with? Well, guys, it has been absolutely fabulous having you in here this
Thank
evening.
you. It's
And
been
I
for
look
us.
forward to getting you guys back in, maybe
Thank
doing
you.
a house concert.
We'd
And
love to do that.
so get with Randy after the show because he's booking for 2020.
Okay.
I
Wow.
don't know if we can go as
2021,
far as
baby.
2021, yeah. We have a show booked for December 20th this
Yeah,
year
we're booked
already.
most of this year.
But we're not booked all solid through there. But
Yeah.
You just talk about booking.
Yeah, that's right. Front end.
I want to again thank Jean and Barbara Moore and Bruce Davis for doing the photography work for us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you to Randy for being not only an engineer tonight, but also my co-host. And thank you to our quaint and sweet listening audience that we have tonight.
Our audience has been with us now for 15 years.
Yeah.
15,000 songs and literally close to 1,000 artists. So yeah, you guys are what makes it happen. Keep listening.
Yeah.
And you are
Thank you.
in the music room.
Yes,
Thank
right.
you.